This is the Troutbitten podcast.
Troutbitten.
Troutbitten?
Troutbitten.
Troutbitten.
Troutbitten?
Yeah, Troutbitten.
Troutbitten.
It's about trout.
Wild trout. This is Troutbitten.
This is the Troutbitten podcast. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Dominic Swantowski. I'm the owner of Troutbitten and the author of Troutbitten.com. My friends, here we are at the end of season 11. This is our season finale. And tonight we're ready to talk about prospecting for trout. But first, we want to sincerely thank each of our sponsors for this season. Thanks to Orvis, Squala, New Trail Brewing Company, Oak and Oscar, Fulling Mill, Grip Studs, Precision Fly and Tackle, Smith Creek, and Trout Routes. These are all companies we're proud to be partnered with. You can support this Troutbitten project by supporting our partners. Use the codes these companies provide or just reach out and thank them for being part of this Troutbitten community. And listen, one of the easiest things you can do to help out is leave a 5-star rating and a comment over at Apple Podcasts or Spotify, because that makes a big difference. So, prospecting for trout. A lot of what we do day to day on the water is searching. We're looking for activity. We're trying to find feeding fish. Sometimes we're looking to find the fish themselves. And other times, we know the trout are there, but they won't eat. So we're faced with the choice to change tactics or change flies. Or we can move on and look for the next opportunity. Now, all of that can fairly be called prospecting. But for tonight, for this discussion, we want to think about how covering water and looking for the players, for the hungry ones, is a unique strategy. It's a lot different than settling in over a pot of risers or even working over 100 yards of some pocket water with nymphs. So the truth is, we're searching for something on every cast, no matter what our approach is. But what we call prospecting is a bit different. It's about canvassing an area, casting a wider net, searching for that next fish and then the next one. Then we can take that data about where and how trout are feeding, and we use it to inform our next decision. Often, we might dedicate a whole day to prospecting. And on other days, it's a prospecting approach that helps us dial in the rhythms of the trout. So we'd like to find where trout are feeding and what they're feeding on most. Then we might sort of change gears to a more targeted approach and do the opposite of prospecting. So prospecting is a strategy for covering water. It's about pace. And tonight, we'll break down how this strategy works while fishing for dry flies, with wets, nymphs, and streamers, just like we've done with a lot of other tactics and ideas. So let me introduce a full house, the Troutbitten crew. Everybody's here with me tonight for episode 10. Austin Dando. What's up, bud? I just looked down, and there he is. He changed into a tank top.
Got the other one on tonight.
Yeah.
The other H.
Yeah.
I got 3. I got one more for you.
Is that home or away?
This is away.
This should be away.
Anyhow.
The light jersey with the H. Hustleton High School. What is it again?
Henderson High School.
Henderson. There he is. So, all right. So I'm going to ask every one of you guys this, but Austin gets the question right off the bat. Any favorite moments from season 11, buddy? Looking back, what'd you like best? Or what sticks out the most?
Yeah, I think what sticks out the most is, in the past, we've had a lot more tactics-oriented episodes.
Yeah.
And I think this season we kind of didn't steer away from it, but purposely talked about maybe some more conservation and ethics and morals of fishing.
Fair.
Going through the guiding and then also through clubs and stocking and wild trout and all that. I really enjoyed it. I think that was a good change of pace and just a different conversation to have.
That's true. That wasn't on purpose either. Everybody out there listening, I guess, doesn't know, but we don't have things planned 6 months in advance or even a month or necessarily even a week in advance. We kind of just roll with it. Somebody will have an idea. We say, let's talk about that next week. Or we'll get some questions, or we'll get some maybe misunderstandings, or we just feel like talking about something or even complaining about something. So we acknowledged last week, we did talk a lot about stocking and club fishing. And Trevor, you and I talked about this, how I think that the podcast has gone on long enough and people know us well enough that I thought we could finally speak our mind about these stocking things. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And be a little bit more than just kind of flippant comments or even comments that cause more kind of disruption or argument in the community. Yeah. I think we're hoping to create a little bit more of a unified voice. Not that we need to be the center of that, but certainly let others know that what our perspective is, and hopefully give others more voice to kind of start speaking about the same things and get the message up to the people that can make some changes.
Right on. And like almost 3 years into podcasting and 120 episodes or whatever, we all felt like we kind of earned some, I don't even want to say credibility, but some understanding from people about who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And just if we start coming out there blasting in season 1 about like, stop stalking over wild trout, especially stop stalking in these clubs. And what are these clubs? We'd have gotten a lot more blowback, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
So it's been that kind of season, Austin. And there's Dr. Trevor Smith. Thanks for being here, buddy. Thanks for being here all season. Appreciate it.
Love being here.
Hey, Josh Darling over there at the original house.
Yes. That in itself feels like it sums up this season for me. It feels just good to be back. I don't think I was here until, I was there for the first couple episodes and then the last couple. So it feels just good to be back.
You're like in a state of transition in your life.
Very much so. Yeah, good transition.
Yeah, right on. Good for you. How about Billy Dell? What's up, bud?
Not much.
Tell everybody your screen name tonight.
Native Willie.
Mm-hmm. Just let that hang there. And what's your favorite part of season 11?
I guess my favorite, I thought it was cool to go through the Caddis Hatch. Like, I feel like there's some books written on it. I don't know of any podcast or any videos that have kind of spent the time like we did. I thought that was different. I thought that was cool. I think it'd be good to do some other hatches.
Right on. Della, you talked about having ethics, just riverside ethics, fisherman ethics, be a really good topic that we need to tackle. And we haven't specifically. I kind of meant to get to it this season, but let's start out with it in season. It would be 13 when we come back in the fall.
You just do a skill series on it. Each ethic can be a skill. So.
Oh, you need to expand it. Just you and me.
No, I don't need it. Humans need it.
Humans. My favorite
Gee.
thing about this season, as I edited back through and even listened back through here in the last couple of weeks to this whole season, is how grumpy Deli is. He's getting.
He's an old. He's a curmudgeon.
I'm telling you. Even
He's
this
so
last
angry.
podcast, he goes, I'm just starting to get really mad about it. Whatever it was he was talking about.
I listened back to the podcast, about half of it driving today. I was like, boy, I really sound like a crank ass.
Grievances.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do.
I came in mad. I came in hot.
You did. That's what we need. We love it. For everybody out there listening, you don't necessarily know Deli's heart like we do. This guy, he's not a big teddy bear. No, he's not. You can't say that about him. But he's a nice guy. How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, who do we have? Oh, Matt's over there just waiting to be introduced. He's like, what's your favorite part of the season, bud? Season 11.
I think I like the stages of angling,
Mm-hmm.
if that's what we called it, right? We went through
Yeah,
the
that was
stages.
early on. Stages of an angler.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. I feel like there's always one episode that kind of resonates with me throughout, whether it's the gap in between seasons or even through a season, and because that one was at the beginning.
Yeah.
Verbally discussing all the different phases I've gone through and other anglers, you guys have gone through.
Yeah.
I want to say it kind of brings you back to a humbleness and an appreciation of what we're all out there for, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes you get caught up in your own head pursuing certain, whether it's, big fish or numbers or whatever. And at the end of the day, it always being able to come back to just being, working on your game, but enjoying all aspects of it is important. And that one kind of resonated with me throughout the season.
Nice. I feel like I learned something from every one of these discussions, just personally. It's, and we've always said, the coolest thing is here, I'm looking at you guys every week, and we get to do this 20, 25 times a year. Pretty neat. With the full crew, it's cool.
Yeah.
All these discussions, they honestly wouldn't happen. We're all way too busy to get together once a week without this happening.
We've almost created the virtual fly shop. Like if you can envision six grumpy dudes smoking a cigar talking at a fly shop. This is what it would sound like, right?
It doesn't happen much anymore, even in fly shops too much, right? It really doesn't. It's funny. I took Aiden to a baseball tournament the other day, and we were running out of gas. I don't know why, but I just looked down. I'm like, whoa, I'm almost out of gas. So I got off the interstate at an unusual exit, and I went down to it. I knew there was a gas station there, but my gosh, I probably haven't been there for 15 years. Rinky-dink gas station. It was Saturday morning. I mean, like 7:30, not even 8 o'clock. And there were like 5, let's say, older retired guys sitting outside, and everybody's, hey, how you doing? As we both went in, all local guys. We go in, and there's more seating in this gas station than there is like, rows of like gum and chips and stuff like that. There's more just random seating, just random chairs, not like here, sit here, I'm going to sell you something. Nah, it's not like they didn't make subs there or anything. It was just seating. And it was just in there. There were another like 7 guys, kind of all ages. And it was really neat to see, Matt. It was like old school.
That's cool.
People were there on a Saturday morning just hanging out, talking.
Yeah, just talking life.
Talking life.
Amazing.
Talking life, we're talking fishing.
All right, so we better get to it. Hey, last night, our 3rd annual airing of Grievances episode published. We always publish on Sunday nights. And as usual, we've had a bunch of comments coming in, especially in the first couple days. So remarkably, all positive so far. I guess I shouldn't be that surprised by that. I think people get it. I think listeners understand why highlighting the dumb stuff out there really matters. And like we said in the podcast, we really believe that a large majority of anglers out there are the normal ones who see a lot of the crap we talked about, the same as, well, almost everyone else. But like Josh pointed out last week, minority rule kind of sucks. And so that's why we like to call stuff out.
Yeah.
So anyway, Austin, will you read this comment? It's not a question. We got 2 comments. And Austin, you want to read this one? It's pretty representative of most of the others. That's why I picked it.
Yeah, sure. All right, so this comment comes from Ben Toby, living and fishing in Massachusetts. Hey, Dom, Trevor, Austin, Josh, Bill, Matt, and Sloop.
Covered them all.
Hey,
I like it. People are learning.
Right for the season
That's
finale.
why I picked it too.
All right.
He's going to be so happy.
I just listened to the latest Grievances episode. Keep these going. How about a biannual episode?
Yeah.
I have a couple of fishing companions here, and we listen. We get it. We agree with mostly everything you talk about. Thanks for calling out a lot of stuff this whole season. You guys said maybe you would come off as grumpy, but with all the stocking stuff and clubs growing, you are bringing up things that need to be said. Keep it up, and we'll keep listening. For what it's worth, the people I fish with all feel the same. Next grievance.
Nice.
Exclamation. Next grievance.
That's great.
It warms my heart.
I know.
Matt,
Matt,
so
back
good.
down it's right there. The clicky, clicky.
I thought
Clicky,
somebody would
clicky.
have said that. I mean, that is one of the highlights of the season, right? The addition of the clicker.
I know.
Matt.
I got
great.
2 comments on Instagram about that today, about the clicker.
They hate it.
No, they like it. Everybody
All
likes
right.
They hate it.
Fired up.
it. Maybe people are just afraid to disagree because they know you'll beat them up.
He watches WWE. He knows what he's doing.
The biggest
I'm the
surprise
clicker
to me.
bandit.
I love it. I don't know. Hey, Trevor, one more comment then. You want to read this one? You're a good
Sure.
reader.
I'm
I want to
all
give
over
you
it.
the chance to show off your reading skills.
Yeah. A little A/B testing between me and Austin. I like it.
Mhm.
He was making up comments last time. We'll see if he can.
Uh-huh.
Was I?
Yeah. Yeah, you're
Oh, that's true.
self-congratulatory.
So,
You remember.
Typical doctor.
Yeah, typical doctor.
Mhm.
Yep. Look how
Exactly.
smart I am.
Exactly. This one's coming in from William Lestco from Philadelphia. For the Troutbitten crew, while I appreciate the quality of your work, and by that I mean the articles, videos, and the podcast, I feel like you have missed the mark with the airing of Grievances discussion. You said it yourself that you are in a Troutbitten bubble. And from the discussion, it seems like your bubble is in social media sites like Facebook and Instagram. You talked a lot about those sites, but that's not real fly fishing. Just a point for you to consider. I do enjoy your work, so thanks for all you do for the education and entertainment. Tight lines.
I got it real quick. That's why I picked it.
Yeah.
Like, William gets it. It's not real fly fishing. Our grievances were against those things that are in social media. That's why we brought them up.
Yeah. I'm kind of surprised at his comment because I feel like that's exactly what we're saying.
Yeah, he almost answered his own grievance against it.
Right.
And I thought, again, like these are cool. I thought all of our comments that came in today were very positive. And this one's really positive too. And he has almost some constructive criticism maybe there.
Sure.
I think he's saying it's not worth our time to pick it apart.
But if we didn't talk about what was worth, things that weren't worth our time, we wouldn't have much to talk about in an airing of grievances.
Plus, I think these things are worth our time because, like it or not, Instagram is the heart of the whole thing right now. It used to be Fly Fisherman Magazine, and Fly Fisherman Magazine is still relevant. There are other media outlets that are still relevant. Go ahead and tell me what they are, because I'm not quite sure what they are, as much as Instagram. I don't know if Facebook matters that much, but that's where it is. And it's fair. That's what drives the trends. That's what drives the understanding, especially for beginners, about, here's what I should do. It's not just Instagram. It's YouTube a lot too.
Sure.
And if there's another one that I'm missing, or if we are missing, like, let us know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and if he's fortunate enough to not, I say fortunate, like if he's not choosing to, partake in those, that's good for him.
Like Trevor over here. Seriously.
Yeah. I mean, that's great. I think it's healthy.
Hold on. I know.
But what we're trying to do here, it's, reaching more people. And the reality is those are just the funnels, right? Those are just the tools anyone uses these days to influence, right? And we're trying to influence in a positive way.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Every one of the companies too is on Instagram and YouTube.
Right.
And they are the ones that are selling you gear and making the next piece of gear that you need to buy. I mean, need to buy. To be a fisherman, you're going to need to buy a few things. And some of those tools are going to be ill-suited for your purposes if we don't kind of step in and go, hold on, we want to do things. We don't want to do things that way. Let's steer things in a different direction. Like you said, Matt, I think that's very much our goal, our purpose here is to try to move things along, perhaps in a more productive direction with the airing of grievances anyway.
Sure.
It's fun too.
It is fun.
And
you know what, William? 1975. It's the last time the Flyers won a Stanley Cup.
No offense, though.
Sorry.
We're not trying to be rude or anything.
Just pointing something out. Sorry.
Flyers suck.
Yeah, Flyers suck. Sorry.
Scotty Hartnell. He was a clown.
Dude, you got you got to put a jab in against the Flyers.
Flyers suck. That's it. Hey, we ready to go?
Yeah.
Whether it's after a fishing trip or at a backyard fire, you can bet the Troutbitten crew has a case of New Trail Broken Heels along with us. It's honestly our favorite beer. This hazy IPA is smooth and full-bodied. Hand-selected Citra hops lead to notes of bright clementine and juicy ruby red grapefruit. Broken Heels is a keeper. New Trail beer is proudly brewed in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and delivered cold to your favorite craft beer retailer every week. At New Trail, it's not about being the best angler. It's about getting out there. So enjoy nature's moments and reward yourself for a day well fished with New Trail Broken Heels. It's Troutbitten's favorite beer. Precision Fly and Tackle is a family-owned business with a passion for the outdoors and a sense of adventure. They are anglers who enjoy every moment spent on the water with family and friends. Precision Fly and Tackle carries the widest selection of Euro rods, reels, lines, leaders, flies, and accessories. From the beginner to the advanced angler, Precision Fly and Tackle can outfit every angler, no matter the budget. Visit them online at precisionflyandtackle.com. Then use code TROUTBITTEN10, that's the number 10, for 10% off your order. Gear up with Precision Fly and Tackle for your next adventure. All right, guys, let's get into it. Prospecting for trout. So one of my main resources, one of my influences as I was kind of converting over from spin fishing to fly fishing way back in my late teens was a Tom Rosenbauer book titled The Orvis Guide to Prospecting for Trout. How to Catch Fish When There's No Hatch to Match. Nice long title for you. I learned invaluable lessons from that resource. big lessons. And as life often goes, it just happened to be the perfect match at the time for the way I already enjoyed fishing. The concept of prospecting with a fly rod, and eventually many different styles of flies, dovetailed perfectly for who I already was as a fisherman. I grew up covering water to catch trout. We fished for mostly stocked fish on medium to small-sized creeks, but we didn't fish the bridge holes very much. I mean, sure, we knew those holes at the easy access almost surely held fish, but we didn't set up there. Honestly, we didn't set up anywhere. For me, from the very beginning, trout fishing was about wading and moving upstream, and then putting a few good casts in that next really good-looking spot before moving on. We covered water. We were prospecting for trout. So we had a Troutbitten live stream on YouTube a couple weeks ago, and Tom Rosenbauer was our guest. Talking with Tom about trout fishing brought back to my mind his book, his text that had such an influence over the way I learned to fly fish. And back then, I quickly learned with a fly rod, prospecting could be even better. Because as I worked upstream, I could change flies and change tactics easily, pretty quickly. Or I could keep it simple, too. I could tie on a parachute Adams and hit every corner pocket in the shade. So guys, do you have some top-level thoughts about prospecting in general? Is this something you do most of the time, very little of the time? I don't know. You ever thought about prospecting?
Yeah, I almost think it's such a default to the way that I fish and grew up fishing that I don't even think of it.
Sure.
Yeah, I've never thought, honestly, to name it very often because it just feels like fishing to me.
It's almost your default mode.
Mm-hmm.
All right, me too. Do we all agree here that most people don't fish that way? When you run into other anglers on the stream, are they working the water like that, or are they just kind of holding in a spot for a lot longer?
Certainly not with the speed that we're talking about. I think that when we're talking about prospecting, we're not sitting in the same spot and trying to figure out what the trout will take in that spot.
Agreed.
We're checking to see is anything home there? Is anything looking to eat there? Let's move on. Let's see what kind of water type. It feels a little bit more like we're testing the water type a little bit more than the fly itself. That's not always the case.
Sure.
I have like a go-to point and a go-to tag if I'm nymphing that are going to be my prospecting flies. And it's pretty much always the same. If I'm like, I don't really know much about this spot and I'm just going to test it out for a while and see what's going on today. It's almost always the same two flies if I'm nymphing, and it's almost always the same fly. And depending on the season, if I'm fishing dry flies.
Right on.
I would say it's almost my go-to to start the day.
Yeah.
Just to get a feel of what's going on the river.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we all even joke around about how Deli covers water faster than probably any of us here.
That's all he does. He just prospects.
Well, and that's why I was bringing it up, because you could say, well, that guy just prospects all the time. But I know, and we've all fished with Deli enough, he doesn't just prospect. I mean, you're looking for something. And when you find that thing, you'll often slow down and then really start to ultimate cherry pick. Like, here's the spot, here's the fly, here's the water type, here's the kind of fly and the way to present it. And now I'm going to nail them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a big value of prospecting.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of what I did. The method I used today to get into some fish, like the morning, I didn't caught a handful of fish in the first 3 hours. And then I switched it up and I started to move around a little bit more. And then I was able to kind of figure out what water they were laying in, what patterns to use. And then I just kind of skipped over the water that I knew wasn't going to be very productive. And then the numbers started coming.
So I think that prospecting to understand what's going on for the day or for the moment and then really dial it in is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's a neat way to do it.
I think there's a subset of a skill where it's not just tactics or your ability to get a dead drift on a certain fly, but the ability to figure trout out within a certain amount of time.
That's nice.
What may take a person all day to figure out may take another angler 30 minutes. And that's a whole other skill. I think it comes with time on the water. It comes with how your mind works, how you try to pick things apart. We talk about woodsmanship, same way you can read a river, same way you can read the woods. It's all, I don't know. It's something different to me.
That's a great concept. That is, right?
Yeah, good points.
That is. Austin, you say it might take an angler all day to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
But we all know that trout change 2 or 3 or 4 times throughout that day. So that's too long. that's too long to figure it out, right?
Mhm.
We all acknowledge that.
You're getting luck by then.
Yeah. You need to be
Sometimes.
able to do it in a half hour, an hour, maybe 2 hours. There are time frames. The light changes, the weather changes, the hatches change, the bait fish patterns down there change. I mean, their habits down there. Too many things change to like figure it out by the end of the day. No. When we spend a full day on the water, we see all of the habits of the trout change in response to all those environmental variables. That's a neat thing, Austin. What would you call that? Does anybody have a name for what Austin just described? Like figuring that out?
Like a fish sense.
Spidey sense.
Because it's not that, but
I would say like it goes along with river knowledge. I think it is just time on the water because, you can not fish a river in, I don't know, maybe a year, but then maybe you have 30 or 40 days on that river in your back pocket. And so you may have an idea like, okay, here's the spots where I think they're going to be in.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of prospect with a little bit of background and a little bit of education to say, okay, I think this fly should work at this time of year.
Yeah.
Because it's happened in the past. And so let me kind of move a little bit quicker and try to pick things up. I'd like to try to prospect, especially when it's first thing, and try to get there at first light where there's not as many anglers on the river.
Sure.
Because then you can quickly maybe assess what lies or what type of water will fish well, and then you can quickly move to another section of river that may have more of that water type before anyone else is awake and out there fishing.
That's nice.
When you were mentioning it, Dom, about descriptions, we all pull out our river journals, right? Like each one of us has a river journal, whether it's mentally or physically, but we all have it, and we pull out and go back through the pages, right? And some folks have the ability to remember it,
sure,
very well, and others maybe not so well. But it's definitely it's definitely a cool thing to be able to have and tap back into what Deli was saying. It's like your fake river journal. But I think it's interesting listening to you guys. I agree. And I think I acknowledge, what Trevor said. I feel like that's my default mode, right? Prospecting in general.
Yeah.
We're disregarding tactics, but for me, when I visualize prospecting in my game, I think I'm more prospecting with a dry fly. Personally, when it's happening, it's a short-lived season most of the time, and I find myself in the mindset of looking for the water, whether that be slow slicks, with fish eating, spent wing spinners, or they're at the head of the riffle when the hatch just begins. I'm prospecting through that type of water, searching for that particular fish eating at that particular bug at that particular time, and I find that's when I skip over the most water, right? I'm prospecting for the juicy stuff with the dry fly when I feel like when I'm nymphing, I fish more of the water in front of me and do a little less prospecting.
Interesting.
One of the things about prospecting, one of the skills that I think is super necessary and kind of a little bit goes along with what you were saying, Austin, is just like the ability to determine pretty quickly what's happening and be able to move on from that. Like Dom, you and I were talking about that this morning. The more that I guide, the more I realize like sometimes it can take 15 drifts through a spot to actually get the drift that would have caught the fish in the first drift. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And if that's where you're at, then prospecting isn't the route you should take.
That's fair.
Because if it's going to take a bunch of drifts through a spot to get, that's a necessary skill to prospect, is to be able to, in 3 drifts, get a good one.
So you're saying that prospecting is not a good idea for beginners?
I don't think it is. Yeah, I think that you need to be able to put an accurate and just a well-produced drift through early on in your time there.
I hadn't thought about that, but that's a good point, Matt.
It's a good point, but you got to make sure you're fishing the right water, right? Like you should pound the money hole, right? The hole that everyone knows has fish. Because if you're fishing 15 drifts in a shallow, unproductive run, right, then prospecting added to your arsenal would actually benefit because you shouldn't get hung up on that spot. Just know that you should be fishing a prime lie. And then I agree, prospecting might not be the benefit there.
Sure.
Deli's got something.
Yeah, and I guess you need to understand what that perfect drift looks like. And I think that's a challenge where people are like, oh, that's good. That's good enough. And it's like, well,
good enough is never good enough, right?
Right.
That's pretty good. Now, you mean that sucks?
Yeah. That's not bad. No, that sucked. I think you really, I don't know, the more I fish, the more I think I have to take my time and make that perfect drift on like maybe the first 4 or 5, because I bet you 80% of my fish today came in the first 5 casts in a run.
Sure. In one, of course. Right.
And it's just like taking that extra step. And when I'm prospecting, sometimes I guess you don't want to rush. Like, you can be fast in between the spots, but once you get to the spots, you have to, stop and take a breath and then cast.
That's a great point, and I think that's worth highlighting and reiterating, that we're not talking about just sailing up the river real fast. As fast as you can go. Let's cover 2 miles in 5 hours. No, like Bill said, when you get to those prime spots, make sure you get your great drifts. And then if you do get your great drifts in those what you think are prime spots, and you're moving on, and then you know what? Maybe that's not the prime water. Maybe what you thought was the B water or the C water is actually the A water. And so get fantastic drifts over in that stuff. And then you're testing stuff as you go with really good drifts, which goes back to what Josh said. You can't really do it when you're a beginner. And that's all right too. But all of us here, I think we're all in agreement, right? This is almost our favorite way to fish. It's certainly the way we start out a day with most times, unless we kind of almost have some insider's knowledge, I suppose, or something we have a ton of confidence in. Or if we show up and there's rising trout or just fish are all over our streamers or whatever, just bang, 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 the first place we start, might get out of that prospecting mindset. It's probably our favorite way to fish because it works so well and because we gain so much knowledge. We're constantly searching, so it's entertaining. I think it's a great way to see the river. It really requires like this curious, investigative almost mindset, and we all enjoy that. Like, you need to make good decisions on what to fish, which is what you guys are talking about, which water to fish, because you're not going to fish at all. If prospecting is about having a pace, and it doesn't have to be super fast, but you do need to keep moving, then you do need to make decisions then. If you're having this pace, you're not going to fish 100% of the water.
Yeah, right. I just think it's really important, as if you're going to be good at prospecting, to know how much you can trust the data you're getting from your drifts and from the trout. And a lot of things play into that. I would say the things that jump to mind for me are just, what are the weather conditions and how do those impact the quality of your drifts? What time of year is it, and how voracious is the feeding, right? A drift in April is not a drift in January here in Pennsylvania, right? And so I'll take a lot more unsuccessful drifts in the winter or even at night, right? Because at nighttime, we're constantly asking the question, did a trout even see that presentation? And can I really make a decision in changing flies or tactics based on the lack of response to the fly, or did I just not get it over the fish? So I think there's some really important things to sort of learn as you get more experienced.
I like that. And Dom, I like what you said about it's a great way to see a river is prospecting, but in return, by doing that, you learn the river. And you learn the river by, I can't tell you how many people I know that kind of get sucked into the habit of fishing that same water over and over again, from a comfortable standpoint. But, little, you know how it is, whether it's seasonal changes with thermal response, or whatever it may be, an underground spring that congregates the fish, at different times of year or in the winter or whatever. You end up learning more by seeing that whole river. So I think prospecting really helps when you utilize that as a tool in your game. It by default causes you to cover more water and learn your river better. I like that.
Oh yeah. I hear us all kind of saying that it's kind of an experienced angler's way to cover the river. You need some confidence in what you're doing, in your tactics, so that you can present that fly really well and get that perfect drift in 2, 3, or maybe 4 drifts. And you need to, like Matt's saying, you might want to know where the spring water is and what those trout in that river do in the wintertime. You kind of want to know the habits of the trout. So you can make these decisions so you can cover water at this pace, this faster pace than, let's say, most people do. Is it only an experienced angler's way to fish then? Is it just like this confidence approach? Or can anybody do it?
I think anybody can do it. I even think there's some value for a beginner.
Yeah.
So
I did it when I was a kid, man. I did it when I was 14 years old fishing minnows. Yeah.
And so maybe you don't make the best cast, but if you cover more river miles, you'll learn that river. And then maybe you learn more buckets, and then let's say you have a below average presentation. The more fish you present it to, the better chance you have of catching a fish.
That's it. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I think it's inevitable. Like, whether you're trying to do this or not, you're going to end up doing it if you're a beginner. You're naturally going to try to cover water and see the river, and you're probably going to stand too long in one place, and you're going to go quickly. You're going to go quickly through somewhere you should have spent more time on, and it's just how you learn. So I don't see a way around it, I guess.
Well, Austin, I know when I've talked about this kind of thing with some guided clients, they'll say, well, my water, if I tried to go fast, I'd be running into 10 guys in the next half mile or quarter mile or less than that maybe. And so it really has a lot to do with the kind of water you're fishing and where exactly you're fishing too, you know? I think our river choices, where we are fishing, is often going to dictate the way we fish. We talk about that, frame of reference there once again. And if you can't move upstream without running into somebody, you're going to try to make the most of what's right in front of you. And that is not prospecting, right?
Yeah, I mean, in that scenario, yes, you would be somewhat limited.
And that's almost too bad.
Oh, yeah.
I would almost say go to a different river.
I know. That's what I was going to say.
If I'm running into someone under 10 or 20 yards,
I know. That's crazy.
My rate of success is not going to be very good, just because even if the person hasn't fished,
he's angry. Bill's going to be so mad, he's going to be throwing rocks at you.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've had people tell me like, oh, that's the only place we can fish. No, that's probably the only place you can fish that has like catch and release regulations or fly fishing only regulations on it. Try fishing the tributaries. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, small streams are some of the best streams to teach you all of this stuff. Prospecting, like, almost everyone naturally is just going to fish a small stream a lot faster than you fish a river that's 100 yards wide. You're just going to keep moving upstream. You go, well, I covered that. Okay. Oop, I screwed that up. I spooked every fish in there. Oh, I put it in a tree. So I'm going to get it out of there. You just keep covering water on a small stream. Go fish the tribs. It'll really teach you how to cover water, and really, small streams teach you how to prospect.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, you're really going to wear yourself out with like a big river if you try to cover all the different water types.
I know.
You're just going to wear yourself out. Like, I think that if you're in a position where you're trying to prospect on a large river, it really is about just like pick a bank, pick a lane,
right,
and
on.
Prospect along that, and don't just kill yourself trying to wade back and forth and back and forth.
That's a good point. So you can prospect a big river, but I like that idea. Like, just hit the left bank and say, I am just going to hit that left bank. I'm going straight up. It's good structure. There's good depth or whatever, cover. So that's all I'm going to do. I like that. You can prospect any river, but I think the smaller the river, the more it kind of calls to you to say, like, I'm going to set a faster pace. I'm not going to hit every piece of water. I'm going to test this. I'm going to test that. Oak and Oscar is an American watch company that does things the right way, not the easy way, crafting mechanical timepieces that combine Swiss precision with American know-how. Oak and Oscar was founded in 2015, named after the owner's love of bourbon and his dog, Oscar. Their watches are built to withstand even the most adventurous fly angler. Our very own Austin Dando has been putting his Olmsted to the test since last year. Oak and Oscar is a watch company that loves fly fishing. Visit their website at oakandoscar.com/troutbitten. Mark your time on the water with Oak and Oscar.
To Bill's point, there's ways you can try, even if you are on a famous river. There's things you can do to buy yourself some more stretch or length of river, and it's fish early, or fish late, they go against when people go out there. Or
Carry
you
rocks.
could carry rocks. Yeah. But you might not see as many people to throw rocks at, if you're willing to get up early, right?
Yeah. Early buys you a lot of space.
It does.
I mean, come on. What time's sun come up right now? 4:45 or something like that?
You can
right?
you can fish with sunglasses on right now at 5:30.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, he's right.
Now you're prospecting that at that time. I don't know about you guys, but chances are you're probably prospecting with nymphs or streamers. But, the dry fly bite might be a little harder to be consistent at that time. I'm not saying not all, dry fly fishing can be had there, but the abundance of hatches and rise forms typically happens, later in the day.
That's interesting.
So you might lose that from a prospecting standpoint.
Or early too, sometimes with the dry flies. That's interesting, Matt. So we've kind of highlighted some of our favorite things about prospecting in general, right? Let's take the rest of the podcast time here to talk about dry flies, wet flies, streamers, and nymphs. Let's break it down. What about dries? You just brought them up, Matt. Like what do we do specifically, or what matters most when you're prospecting with a dry?
For me, I'll speak Western. Like for me, we typically have, I'm prospecting with a bushy stimulator or
knuckle
big
dragon.
Stone fly. Yeah, just
easy stuff.
Moving. The knuckle dragon for sure.
Yeah. Just dumb fish.
Dumb fish. I'm prospecting for dumb fish. Right?
Maybe,
but that's kind of it's less. They're less potted. They're less sipping, and it's more opportunistic fish.
Looking
so
for the
prospecting
opportunistic.
in that situation for me on the dry fly is very productive. That's what I like to do.
I think the only difference between your waters and our waters that you used to fish here, Matt, is the size of the fly and the size of the trout quite often. I mean, I use a parachute ant that's a size 12 or a 14. If it seems to be a tough day, then I'll fish a 16. And I will do that. I've said this before. We have just entered my favorite dry fly fishing season, and that is after the main hatches are over. And right now it is ant season. Call it ant, beetle, whatever. I fish one fly. It's a parachute ant. And I love it. I just do it. It's my go-to almost every day. And I can usually make it work. The same thing as you're saying, Matt. I'm looking to cover water. I'm looking to find the players. And I think the only difference between what you're saying and I am is the size of the fly. You're trying to get good dead drifts, You're trying to put it probably close to the bank or some kind of structure, right? And cover water, find the juicy spots,
right?
And see if you can find a fish that wants to eat that. If not, 5 steps, 10 steps up, and there's the next spot.
Exactly. Moving quick.
Mm-hmm.
Shameless plug for the perfect parachute ant video on
Perfect
YouTube.
Parachute ant. Do you fish that, Josh?
Oh yeah.
And Trevor. Cool. It is my favorite.
Would you say that it's beneficial, and both with the dry flies as well as with others, to change one variable at a time? I mean, when you prospect, are you thinking, all right, I've got an ant, that's a constant, right? And I know that trout in their summer lies are going to be maybe preferentiating shaded lies or under foliage or cover like that. Are you looking for particular types of cover? You're always going to use the ant, and then it's about finding, your variable, or say the other constant is just like your presentation. You're presenting on a dead drift. So the variable is just where are the trout lying? Is it under foliage? Is it in the shadows? Is it in riffles? What do you think that there's benefit to changing one thing at a time in terms of is that why you stick with the ant? Why not say you're struggling with the dry fly in terms of prospecting in the summer? Why do you think you find yourself sticking with the ant?
Because it has worked so often. I have so much confidence in it, right?
So that's so much confidence that you feel like if you're not catching fish, it's not because the ant's the wrong thing.
Right. It's not the pattern as much as the fish just aren't willing to come up, right? That said, I mean, it's come from a lot of fishing, and now I have confidence in that. And I'm still open-minded to the fact that I don't have the right pattern, maybe. But Trevor, I used to carry 4 or 5 different terrestrial patterns. Some would be beetles and different sized ants and different patterns. I hardly ever deviate away from that perfect parachute ant, as you said, darling. I'll fish the different sizes, but that's usually my go-to. Okay, My second, Trevor, is some kind of caddis. It'll be either an X caddis
like an elk
or a
or-
CDC and
yeah.
elk. Yeah.
Sure.
And if they won't eat that, then my next thing, we'll talk about this in a bit, is I'll throw kind of a big nymph at them, and I'll treat that like a dry fly. But it's seriously, we'll talk about that in a bit. Those are the two patterns, though, the two dries. I got an ant and a caddis. If they won't eat it, I'm moving.
Mm-hmm.
Do you switch your pattern based on the water type?
No.
See, I do. I feel
Cool.
like
Tell us about that.
So if I'm prospecting a big flat or a pool, yes, I agree. I like the ants or the beetles. But when I get into moving water that's kind of fast and has some boulders and stuff, I don't necessarily feel like I do as well with the ant. And so a lot of times I use a caddis or like a size 12 or a size 10, like I'll call it a comparadun, which is, it's made to kind of look like a slate drake.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the caddis and the slate drake, at least in the spring and the fall, the fish seem to see a lot of them. And so if you're prospecting with them, I've had better success on those, at least in the faster and the deeper the pools where they'll come up to them versus like a flat that's like a glass. I feel like that's where I do better with the ants and beetles prospecting.
I hear you. So to be clear too, I'm just talking about the almost, let's say, summer fishing, where I'm talking about the ant and the terrestrial. I'll go clear into October with that. Starts in late June for me, and I'll go through October. But I don't know, a clink hammer is my kind of go-to for every other time of the year if I'm prospecting with a dry fly. I like your idea, Deli, about changing the fly for the water type.
Even in the summer, I'll prospect, like I still use the same, the caddis and the slate drake in those faster runs. I don't know. I got more confidence in them than the ant.
It's a bigger fly too, right? I mean, that slate drake is probably it's bigger than even my number 12 ant.
Yeah, I usually fish a 10.
So suffice to say, you're using a pattern that you think has broad appeal, right? You're
nice.
You're thinking you want to be the appetizer on the menu that the most people are going to like. That, and again, increasing the odds that if you get a refusal, it's not because of the pattern, that it's more because you're in the wrong water type or all the other potential variables. But that's what I hear you saying, is that you're trying to pick something that's has a high rate of acceptance.
Yeah, nice. Along those same lines, Trevor, when the water's low enough and clear enough, and when you're not asking the trout to do too much, is meaning come up through, I'm not trying to ask them to come up through 6 feet of water.
Sure.
If there's no hatch going on and I see no rises, I'm not going to fish 4, 5, or 6 feet of water and try to prospect with a dry fly. That's asking them to do a lot. And I might catch that really random fish, but I'll do a lot better if it's 1 foot of water. Knee deep stuff, calf deep stuff. That's what I'm going to hit mostly when I'm prospecting with dry flies around here.
So do you feel like that differs? Like if you take I feel like dry flies, I don't know, I'm almost going to say streamers are maybe to me the most similar in terms of just how wide reaching. And I think wet flies fit into this. I just don't fish wet flies a whole lot as a prospecting technique or just in general. So I'm kind of going to connect this to streamer fishing. But what makes the difference for you guys in terms of whether you're picking, and Grobe, you did mention this a little bit before, like time of day might play into this, but like, hey, say when you hit the river, what makes a big difference for you if you're trying to think of like, oh, I'm going to pick a streamer or pull a streamer out versus a dry fly?
Are you asking Grobe about streamers?
Yeah.
His eyes just crossed. He has no idea.
Because that's never the best option if you want to catch fish, right?
Oh, you were trying to make him feel bad about himself, weren't you?
Yeah. But it really comes down to, at some point you have to decide, like, Bill is going to go fish streamers because that's what Bill likes to do. Like, he's committing to the streamer fishing, not necessarily because it's the way to catch the most fish.
Just likes doing it.
He just likes doing it. And when I heard Dom talking about it, Dom has confidence in the ant, but he's putting a bunch of science backing into that because it's terrestrial season. Like those brown trout are going to eat ants. There's no other bugs out there, right? So he has confidence because it's gonna likely be the best tactic at that time.
And you'd use a hopper.
Yeah, and I'm going to use a hopper, but part of it, like, let's be honest, like we might be like maybe not in low water back there, but for me, I'd probably catch just as many, if not more fish nymphing, right? Like,
yeah, that's true.
I don't want to, like, I'm okay not doing that. Like, I just want to fish dry flies. Just
I know,
like
it's your
Bill wants
time.
to fish streamers. Like,
it's my time now. I'm fishing dries.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm stubborn now. I just want to fish dry flies. Like, I am prospecting because I want to see a fish come up out of the water and slam a dry fly for the next 3 months.
That's exactly my line of thinking, Matt.
Yep.
Right.
And I'm
now.
like, yeah, right. Why not? It's a cool eat. And I'll never.
Now's the time.
Ant eats out there are awesome.
And you know what? It probably took me 10 years of fishing to kind of understand that. And now I have my preferences and my habits. And just like Deli has his thing, he wants to fish his way. Trevor wants to fish his way, Austin. And all you guys want to fish your way at your, in your seasons. This is my season for dry fly fishing.
Yep.
Boy, am I looking forward to it. My guide season is almost over. I have 7 more trips. And then I am going to fish my ass off with dry flies.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think there comes a point when you're like, I just want to catch fish a certain way.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like we get bottled into that
stages of an angler.
Oh, yeah. He's in the elitist stage.
Who, me or Bill?
Mostly Bill.
I was knuckle dragging today throwing nymphs, so
He's an angry elitist.
He's an angry elf.
The worst kind.
Call me an elf one more time.
It gets to the point though, like Deli's saying, like it's the fear of missing out. Like you get past that stage
I know.
of bypassing a 20-inch fish or a 19-inch fish that might not eat that dry fly. It could eat that dry fly, but you might have a better chance of getting that bigger fish with a different tactic. But you don't care. Like, I don't care. I'd rather catch the 18-inch fish on a dry fly. I'm at that stage, right?
Yeah. At that time of the year.
I think,
right?
I think
you're not going to get that stubborn about it in the wintertime necessarily.
Exactly.
And you're not going to catch the most, you're probably not going to catch the most and the biggest fish prospecting with that dry, but there are times when fishing that ant and the beetles or like, it'll teach you something. Like fish have different lies in the summertime. And there's a certain stream that I found that they'll lay on in some really weird spots, and some of the bigger fish will lay there.
Burn it down.
Matt's Creek.
I know where that is.
Matt's Creek.
Certain stream. Huh.
And
no, Austin said he knows where it is.
I might have shared him some info.
Apparently, I'm an info collector.
He is.
Yeah,
I heard that last week.
Yeah, you heard that.
I do like information.
You're a patron at the bar, Austin.
That's right. He tips well.
He's a receiver. He's not a giver. He's a receiver.
Speaking on, let's move on to streamer fishing. Did we cover that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I think so.
Did we?
Shut up.
Please,
I think
Austin.
The nature of streamer fishing in itself is really lends itself to prospecting, because we're often showing a fly to many trout.
Yeah.
They're either going to eat that fly or they're not going to eat it, and we can kind of move on and select water. Can kind of move on and target water pretty quickly.
For the most part, almost every time I fish a streamer, I'm almost in like kind of like full coverage where I want to fish every water type.
Yeah.
I may not make many casts into it, but I want to make at least 1 or 2 really good casts into almost every good looking lie across the river.
Right on. But then you also pick, well, let's say when you get into your A water, let's say your prime, what you think for that day, that moment is the prime water, then I know that you've talked about putting your best cast as your first cast.
Yeah.
Making sure you take those extra couple steps to line up, and now your first cast is in that perfect spot in the prime water.
I think, I don't know. I kind of do that with all 3 or 4 tactics.
Oh, cool.
Like, I think the same thing can be said for dry fly fishing. Like, if you're trying to make too far of a cast and you're laying it in there and you've got 50 feet of line out and you're trying to set the hook, you're not going to be not going to have a good enough chance to hook that fish. If you're trying to nymph 40 feet away, it's the same thing. Like, just lately I've been really trying to focus on take the extra step and then make the cast, and not make that super long cast.
Bill, as somebody who likes to prospect with streamers, I don't think it's super surprising that you like the Grinch, which is kind of your thought child as far as streamers go, is a versatile.
He's mad that we shared that.
I know.
Everybody fishes the Grinch.
You're burning it down. I know.
But it's versatile, right? Like you can fish that in any water type. You can, and it's like that most acceptable size,
one.
where it's just kind of like,
Grinch.
right? It's not too big.
Mr. Grinch.
I think it fits what you like to do with it. But do any of you guys prospect with wet flies in reality?
No.
Outside of night
Yeah,
fishing?
I think wet flies is all prospecting.
Yeah, but
for
do
me,
any of you actually do it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do it in the last, I'm going to say 2 years. It's one of the things I do when I go fishing. When I have a full day, I'll put wet flies on and swing them. I don't talk about it much because I'm not I think I'm good at it, actually. It works pretty well at night. No, seriously.
Yeah, nighttime.
I was going to say I'm not very good at it, but I think I am good at it. Shut up, Austin.
Then why don't you do it more? Because if you're good at it, that means you're catching fish.
No, I think my presentations are good enough.
That's an interesting founded claim.
When I compare it to nymphs, when I compare it even to streamers,
It's those trout that are
tries,
the problem.
Yeah.
It's those damn trout that won't agree to my really good presentations. I don't think wet flies produces as much. Around here,
Yeah.
I just don't think it produces as much. And I'm talking year round. Now, you can tell me about when the hatch is going on and all that other stuff and trout are coming up through the water column and eating flies mid-column. Great. Now you got a fly right in the middle of the column with your wet fly swinging approach. Cool. But year round, nah. I don't think it's nearly as good as nymphing, streamers, or even now we're in the summer.
Right.
I feel like I've done it a lot. I get a lot of time on the water, and I like doing it though. Austin, he's disappeared. Look at him. I don't know where he went.
Right here.
Heat exhaustion.
He's there.
I've got my back to the fan.
But Austin, I did it the most, and I've done it the most. I've done it a lot more since we all started night fishing. Well, all of us who are not afraid of the dark.
Willie?
I still catch more fish than you. Keep fishing in the dark.
Oh, hey now. We've come to this in season, at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you think it's the same thing though?
Same thing what?
Like swinging wets at night, to me, is a different tactic than swinging wets during the day.
Well, you say different tactic. I think the actual presentation is the same, if not extremely similar, but they respond to it differently. I'll give you that.
Yeah. And even just size of fly and all that kind of stuff and the utility of it. I think at nighttime when the trout are blinded, like I do think that the vibration or even the movement or the swinging creates turbulence that they can sense with their lateral lines. So I think they can actually sometimes target and find those flies a little bit more easily in a swung presentation. We've talked about
Austin
that.
is challenging us.
I just feel like it's a different tactic.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
Think about fishing a streamer at night. We fish them so much differently. And that stuff often wouldn't work during the daytime. And to say that we're going to swing a totally different style of wet fly at night, that could be arguably a streamer more than a wet fly traditionally.
That's true. The fly is bigger, as Trevor said. But I feel like, for me, I'm seriously just thinking about for me, I swing wets the same way that I learned to swing wets in the daytime. And it's not as productive in the daytime, I will say. On a seasonal basis, it can be. But I feel like the tactic, and I mean it, that's when I started learning, really digging in and trying to learn to fish wets. And Davey Watton, honest to God, everybody tell you this, that's the number one guy. Yep. I learned a lot from Davey Watton, videos and a couple articles and stuff like that, and a couple of other guys. And I learned it in the day so I could do it at night. And the only thing I changed, Austin, was the size of the fly. The landscape is changing for trout anglers. No doubt you've already noticed another truck at your favorite access point and seen more anglers on the water. For those looking for new challenges and fishing opportunities, Trout Routes has the data to help you avoid the crowds and explore new public water. Trout Routes has mapped more than 50,000 trout streams across the country with curated, detailed maps of public land and access points. Trout Routes has developed integrated and interactive data, putting the tools in your hands to research new water and help you navigate in the wild to know exactly where you stand in the current. It's still up to you to find those deep pools and undercuts, but Trout Routes helps you get on the water, connecting you with resources like fly shops and stream gauges for trout water across the country. Download Trout Routes in the App Store today. Then use the code Troutbitten. for 20% off your membership at maps.troutroutes.com. For over a decade, Smith Creek has designed and built outstanding gear for the serious angler. Smith Creek's Rod Rack is the perfect solution to store up to 7 pre-rigged fly rods safely inside your vehicle. Each kit comes with 2 heavy-duty suction cups and 3 mounting methods. If your vehicle has bolt holes in the rear headliner, Smith Creek now offers free M6 eye bolts with your proof of purchase. The Smith Creek Rod Rack has been my choice for rod storage for the last 5 years because I prefer to keep my rods in the vehicle, rigged up and ready to go, without the need for a rod vault on the top of the vehicle. All Smith Creek gear is backed by outstanding customer service, no matter where or when you bought it. To stay up to date on their latest specials, follow them on Instagram at Smith Creek NZ. Quality you can depend on from a brand you can trust. Smith Creek.
So for me, the wet flies during the day are probably, even in the summer, there are caddis, there's slate drakes, there's different things that are hatching. And so that wet fly most likely during the day is representing something hatching.
Yeah. Smaller.
Where where probably at night you're probably more looking to represent like some sort of small bait fish, right?
I know. If you're fishing a size 2 or a size 4 wet fly, that's not an insect. That's a bait fish. And we all acknowledge that. And yet my presentation is very much the same. Even though Austin wants to disagree with it.
So what about nymphing? Any cross? What would you say is the most, if you're going to prospect?
Trevor's ready to get out of here.
Next tactic.
Hey, listen, you said you wanted to keep it to an hour.
Next
I'm taking
tactic.
ownership. Next tactic. Like I've heard you say before that you think you see nymphing and prospecting with a nymph as very similar to prospecting with a terrestrial. Why do you think that those two have so much in common?
Well, when I said that, I'm just talking about in the summertime when I have those tough days when they won't eat the dry fly with the ant, and I go to the caddis, they still won't eat it. My next thing to do is go to a tight line rig and take kind of a bigger nymph. I'm talking about a and I'll put it right. I'll just bleep it.
I'm sure you burned down my pattern.
This nymph. Oh yeah.
Okay, don't do that one, Dom.
No, I'll take that nymph, that really special one, and I'll put it right up against the bank in the same places that I would have put the ant, that I was putting the ant. I'll put it in the same places. I'll get 5-foot drift, and then I'm out. And then right back in the next spot, and then 10 feet up above that, and then 8 or 5 feet up above that.
Yeah.
And I'm just covering water in the same way as the same way as I was when I was prospecting with a dry. I'm just hitting those spots. I got my pace. I'm moving along, and I'm doing the same thing with that one fly against some good structure and just covering water and just going after it. That's what I mean by that similarity.
Yeah. So it's still specific and tactical and not just and I just think prospecting as a term comes off to me oftentimes as sort of, and we've talked about this a little bit, but it comes off as like this sort of haphazard shotgun technique. And what I'm hearing more and more throughout our conversation is that it's anything but that. There's still a lot of thought behind what we're testing. And there's also this continual running kind of ticker in our mind of this, not this, until you do sort of dial in, this type of pattern or this particular pattern and then this type of water, and then you sort of start to zero in on what it is exactly that you want, assuming that you want to catch the most fish, I think, right? Like I think that's what we're kind of assuming, that a caught fish is sort of the metric that we're looking for as a measure of success, right? But you could get even more specific than that and start to target like Bill sometimes with streamers, the type of fish, right? If you want to target that upper teens fish, or the one fish in that particular stretch that's going to be a little bit more aggressive and carnivorous or pestivorous or whatever, then maybe you're making your goal even more or even smaller, I guess. But either way, it's anything but haphazard.
I think, like you said about the big fish, I do think the prospecting and covering the water is most times the best chance to catch your big fish. Like in all the tactics we talk about, whether it's streamers or nymphs or dries, like there's only so many big fish if you're fishing a legitimate river in a mile of water. And so the more water you can cover, the more even with dry flies, right? Like if you're covering that mile of water and you're kind of looking for a certain water type, there's only so much of it where that big fish could be lying any time of the year, whether it be spring, fall, or summer.
Yeah.
Streamers, the same thing. And nymphs, like you can target those areas where you've had success in the past catching big fish.
I think the difference when you're prospecting with a nymph is that it often takes more drifts in the same lane with a nymph to really look at it and go, that's the drift I wanted. Ooh, I got into the strike zone and now I got it. Oh, that's a good drift. I agree. Then if you just approach, I don't know, a bank lane with a dry fly and you're a good caster, you can go, oh, first drift. Oh, look at that. I got 10, there's 15, there's 20, there's 25 feet of a dead drift. Right. What else can I do? Okay, move on. 5, 10 steps up, you keep going. If you hit that same lane with a nymph, it will take you 2 or 3 or 4 or 10 drifts to get that really satisfying one, and then you can move on. So nymphing almost forces you to kind of slow down.
I mean, do you think it's because you can't really see all of the variables at play? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's unseen.
Yeah, it's unseen, right? So you're testing. Each cast is a test.
Absolutely. And yet you can still prospect with a nymph. And Deli, you're talking about that. Like that you often start out, I know you like to start out with streamers early morning, but you fish a lot of nymphs early on to kind of see what's going on.
Yeah, like right now, it's rare. Unless there's a storm or there's something rolling in, most mornings I'm fishing dry dropper or fishing nymphs. And most times it just depends on the size of the stream that I'm in right now.
Yeah.
But for me, like when I'm nymphing, it depends on how the fish are feeding. If the fish are feeding aggressively, then I actually want to take extra time to make sure I get that first drift right. Because if they're feeding aggressively and you throw like a half-ass cast in there, they're going to move and try to eat it. And so they're either going to eat it not as gracefully and you're going to miss them, or like when you're prospecting and nymphing, I think you have to pay attention to how the fish are eating. Because if they're eating very aggressively and they'll move out of their feeding lines and you're not throwing a good cast in the first few times through, they're going to move and you're going to miss that fish because it did move out of the feeding line. It happened multiple times today when I didn't take my time.
I don't like to believe that, Deli.
A lot of times to me, what I'm noticing is it depends on the current type. If it's a nice, graceful current type that comes in versus like a complex current where it's got a bunch of boulders and it's got like an up current, you have a better chance of missing the fish with that up current.
Some bitch at up current.
The old up current. It gets you every time.
Some bitch.
The undertow.
All right. Hey, we just lost Darling.
See you, Josh.
He's gone.
See you in October.
Right? The old internet. Cut them out. It's like you're done with this house.
The internet.
Done with this internet connection.
I'm done with season 11.
And Infinity just cut the cable. He was like, peace out.
You have no friends. Your family's
The old
gone.
Comcast killed him.
We're losing it. We're losing it.
Oh, that's rough. Too bad for Darling. Anyway, we did cover it.
Right?
We got the outro.
Well, we could have all right.
Anything else, guys?
Now, hold on.
Let him say it.
Somebody else want to say it?
Anything else, guys?
One more thing. I'm heading into, I mentioned my favorite season, but I'm doing it the ultimate prospecting by not only a different vessel, but dry dropper.
Ooh. The elite.
Right? So for me, that is the ultimate prospecting is a drift boat. Is a drift boat with a bushy dry fly and a 18-inch dropper. And I am prospecting the whole river for the whole float.
Amazing. Why don't you just swing treble hooks?
There's nothing better, man.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Living the dream.
Living the dream. It's hard for me to believe that as I look out the window and there's a whiteout in Bozeman on June 17th.
Isn't that wild?
That's a true story.
Snowing out there. Wild.
Yeah.
Well, we want to come join.
That makes sense. Yeah. Because then
it's a fun way to fish.
Yeah. You're kind of doubling your prospectability, right? Because you've got A and B options, and
dumb fish one up top, dumb fish two up.
Rainbow 1 and Rainbow 2.
Double them up.
Breaker. This is Rainbow 1.
If they're
We're gonna eat the dry. Come in,
Matt, if
Bella.
they're hitting just the dry fly, do you ever cut?
Breaker. I'm going to get snagged on the nymph.
Do you cut the nymph off, or do you just
Breaker,
leave it
I'm
dry
stuck.
with the nymph?
It depends.
I got caught. I got stuck in the
We got
side.
a whitefish. We got a
These
whitefish.
idiots.
The white fish can be an issue. Yeah.
I got some
If I'm
grass.
catching too many whiteys, I cut it. But you cover so much so many miles.
You know, what an elitist. That's a native fish.
Throw it on the bank.
That's right.
Unbelievable.
That's like your greenbacks, your
My
smallmouth.
God.
Throw them on the bank.
Oh,
Get the
you
rodent
watch your
in
mouth.
there. You know? Let's get rid of those trout.
White fish.
White fish,
There you
white fish, white fish, white fish.
Oh my God.
This season went to the shitter.
Till next season, friend.
Well, you know, it's the end of
It's
it.
the end of it.
Anyway,
You
I
know,
love it.
we're gonna end on that note.
it's
hard not to.
we just might.
It's all the heat.
We got no darling. Right? We talked about, how to
Yeah.
fold the dumb trout.
Austin's half alive in his attic.
Oh,
Fishing out of it.
I had a point, but it ran away. The white.
Deli usually has something.
Yeah, I'm that guy.
Anything
I'm
else,
that meeting.
guys?
I'm that guy in a meeting that's like, hold on.
And then we go,
Hold it
here's
up.
Deli.
You're the guy in the doctor's
Here's Deli.
office. The doctor's walking out, and you're like, "Oh, one more thing."
One more thing,
It's
bud.
only because you give us 5 minutes. Sat in that room for 2 hours.
And the doctor goes, hey,
Yeah, well,
I know.
oh yeah, sure.
Come back more often.
Sure, William.
Well, once every 3 years isn't good.
What are you thinking, William?
No.
How can I help you?
Only men are proud about that.
Oh, I can't.
Oh, hey.
Hey now.
Hey.
I don't remember.
All right, there it is. Prospecting for trout. There's the end cap on season 11. Hey, thanks again so much to each of you out there for listening. Thanks for writing in, and thanks for supporting this Troutbitten project in every way that you do. In the last few years, this Troutbitten community has really carved out its own corner. So for everyone out there listening who enjoys this work, you have a place here. You are our people. So here's what's going on next in the Troutbitten world. The New Trail Troutbitten beer release event is on June 29th at the New Trail Brewery in Williamsport, PA. Join us for the first pour of our Hey Now IPA. Doors open at noon. No tickets necessary. It's just kind of a hangout until the doors close at night. So we have a lot of giveaway items that you can sign up for at the Precision Fly Fishing Mobile Fly Shop truck. Good times are coming. Then Austin and I will be back with Season 12 of the Troutbitten Podcast with a skills series on dry fly fishing for all you elitists out there. That'll probably start in early August. Josh Darling and I have a Troutbitten Tips video on hook sets coming. We also have another tying video coming soon, both on the YouTube channel. And the Fish and Film series begins this summer. As always, I write and publish new articles to the website every week, so you can check those out and keep in touch. Lastly, a heartfelt thank you to my best friends in the world, these Troutbitten guys. Thanks for everything you do, gentlemen. You're the best. Now, Mr. Matt Grobe, be nice. Will you read us out?
I'm going to try to stay focused. Here we go. Remember, the Troutbitten Project is a free resource for all anglers. The Troutbitten website hosts over 1,000 articles with endless stories, commentaries, tactics, tips, and more. Find what you like through the top menu and through the search page. Navigate by way of the categories and tags too. Be sure to find the Troutbitten YouTube
It's
channel,
going smooth.
now featuring the Troutbitten Tips series, the Fish and Film series, and the Troutbitten Fly Box.
Don't break them up.
All in collaboration with Wilds Media. Thank you for listening to the Troutbitten Podcast. Please give the show a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts
Fish
or
along.
Spotify and leave a comment, because that really helps.
Fish along.
Until next time, friends, fish hard, enjoy the day,
Grinch.
and find your life on the water. I was sick. I was in the zone.
You were in the zone.
Native Willie.
That's nice.
You know, what may take a person all day to figure out may take another angler 30 minutes.
Spidey sense.
I don't see a way around it, I guess.
His eyes just crossed. He has no idea.
Yeah, I mean, in that scenario, yes, you would be somewhat limited.
You can catch a couple.
Oh, yeah.
Come on, Doc. You're so damn smart. You can't even get an internet connection.
Because that's what Bill likes to do.
He's an angry elitist.
I'm okay not doing that.
Mostly Bill.
I was knuckle dragging today, throwing nymphs, so
I do like information.
some of the bigger fish will lay there.
Certain.
Burn it down.
Matt's Creek.
I know where that is.
Matt's Creek.
Certain stream.
You're a patron at the bar, Austin.
Breaker, I'm stuck.
I still catch more fish than you. Keep fishing in the dark.
I got caught.